What's up, everyone? All right, so in today's episode, I'm going to break down all of my trades from the morning, and it won't take long because I didn't take very many trades. Today, when I first logged in and looked at Gap Scanner, our leading gapper was only up 30%. It was just like crickets. There was no volume anywhere in the market. So things have definitely cooled off. And as I said yesterday, I'll do a separate episode talking about how to time these kind of hot and cold cycles. So you make the most that you can when it's hot, but then also take your foot off the gas when it's cold. And at the same time, you're ready to put the pedal back to the metal as soon as it heats back up. That timing, that's a very subtle touch that a lot of beginner traders will struggle with. So I'll talk more about that in an upcoming episode. But today, let's go ahead and jump onto the screen share and start breaking things down. So CMCT was the stock that I made the most on. As you can see right now, we really don't have too much that's moving. SMX is our leading gainer, but it's actually a reverse split. So it appears to be a gapper, but there's no volume because there's no news on it, other than the reverse split. The reverse split, though, by itself, not, I guess, enough of a catalyst. So so that one's out. And then BRLT, this one, lower price, 79 million share float, so kind of not my cup of tea. AVAH, higher float. So Craig, CREG. This one, it was up after hours, but by pre-market, it was already stair-stepping down. So I just said, nah, see, that's not going to work. So I left that one alone. Run, higher flow. I mean, you can see these are just not good setups. So at 7 a.m., there was nothing. And I just sort of thought, well, what am I going to do? But we did have CMCT. And so here's the story with CMCT. Popped up after hours, popped up again at 4 a.m., pulled back, and then popped up right here at 7. And so I jumped in to anticipate the breakthrough VWAP right there at about $8.15. So I chased it a little bit, and you can see sort of it popped up, dropped down, and then it rallied back up here to 10, pulled back and squeezed up to a high of about 10.20. And I was really looking for it to break through this double top here, right? And continue higher, but it just couldn't do it. It was such a shame. So on this one, I got a few trades on it, but in total, I only made $2,500. So this ended up being a small green day, but I'm just trying to remind myself right now, it's better to lock it up green and not overstay my welcome than end up, spinning my wheels, getting super aggressive on low quality setups and getting completely smoked. I just don't need to do that. So for right now, this is kind of where I sit today. And my thought was, we do have an IPO, Fly. This is an IPO. It's about 20 million shares coming later today. Figma, this one IPO'd last week. And if you recall, it IPO'd and really put in like a huge squeeze for 2 days. So Figma and Fly both have lockout periods. The Fly lockout period is 180 days. So insiders and certain big pre-IPO holders cannot sell for a while. Now, what's interesting is they're selling about 20 million shares onto the open market, but they have 140 million shares outstanding. So the public market only represents a 20% or a little less than of the total outstanding shares available. And the reason that's kind of interesting is because that 20% is going to dictate the actual trading price. See, that's kind of funny because there's a small percentage that's available to be publicly traded, the demand will likely be higher than the supply, which will cause the price to go up. So then if you're one of the people that's holding 5, 10, 20 million shares on the other side that's in the lockout period, your kind of market value, if you sort of just priced it at the market, is going to be very high. But if you tried to sell 10 million shares, you'd be increasing the available float by 50%, which would presumably cause the price to drop significantly. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how this works, because I think on the one hand, it's a tactic to get the stock price higher, so the unrealized gains and sort of mark-to-market value of all the insiders' holdings are also higher. But if they try to sell them on the market, it's going to suppress the price. So now they could take loans against the share value, which people do. Instead of selling, they take loans. They use their stock as collateral. So they want to go, buy a $100 million private jet or something. They say, use some of my stock as collateral. I don't want to sell it. And most banks, you will do that. They're happy to do that. Especially, their collateral requirements may, be, there'll be percentages and maybe obviously higher, but nonetheless, that's a technique that will certainly be used. And people might take a loan against their stock to go invest in a different company. So, and this is kind of the same with Figma. So Figma, the price, really high, but it's obviously come down a bit, but even still, it's it's a really high IPO, and so we're in a market right now where these IPOs are getting a lot of attention. Traders are definitely jumping onto them. When Figma IPO'd on the 1 minute chart, basically it opened and went straight up into a halt. So if we back this up here, this was the Figma IPO from last week. So it opened right here, goes straight into a halt. Then it resumes and goes straight up here. And I mean, this is a huge move from $80 a share up to like 115. Now, the only problem for me is that this IPO'd at 158 in the afternoon, and I don't typically stay around that long. And Fly may also not IPO till later in the day. I don't think I don't know. It tends to be the case. So in any event, this gave traders in the afternoon some good opportunities, but short-lived. I mean, it didn't continue really into the next day. It's just been pulling back. But for today, those of you guys that are sticking around, you can certainly keep Fly on watch. It's currently indicating at $61 a share. That's above the IPO price, which I think was $40 to $45 or $45. So it's opening above the IPO price, which is the same as Figma and some of these others. And so it may provide some opportunities, but for retail traders, if you're using commission-free brokers, your executions may be a little slower on a stock like this that is just surging with volume. When it first starts trading, the volume is just crazy. So just word to the wise to be a little cautious there, and also just to keep in mind that we will have better opportunities in the future. These hot and cold cycles, even the hottest markets, they don't go, just going straight up like that. The hot markets still go up and then pull back and then go up and then pull back. And, so this was June, this was July, and right now we're kind of in August. And look, maybe it does end up being a little sideways for a little longer than we expect, but then how do we time that next leg higher? Typically, it's going to be when a stock goes up, 1,000%, and all of a sudden that knocks people off the sidelines, and they're like, here we go, we're getting ready. And then after that big 1,000% move, everyone's looking for the next one. So then the next one goes up a lot as well, and we're in another hot cycle. The problem back here, the why things kind of cooled off, was because we had a lot of these crypto treasury catalysts, and they would pop up and then sell off. And we also had obviously some insiders. Well, I don't know if you'd say it's insiders, but somehow the news is getting leaked on some of these. So people are trading before the news actually comes out, which is actually a form of insider trading. But it's quite obvious that it's been happening. And so these stocks are getting hyped up on no news, and then the news comes out and then they just dump. So it's, kind of frustrating. And I think that kind of spelled the end of this last hot cycle. But nonetheless, it's only a matter of time before we get another stock that squeezes up because it genuinely has a good catalyst. And that's what I'm going to be watching. All right, so that's the game plan, or that's my recap for today. Game plan for the rest of the day. Keep an eye on Fly. It may be worth watching. I don't know. Again, it's going to be a little tricky at $62 a share. Currently showing 62. So on my market data window here, I'm showing $62. So, that's kind of where it's showing right now, but it could open in a minute, it could open in 3 hours. We just don't know. But all of a sudden it'll just start trading and your charts will start updating, and then it'll be off to the races. So anyways, buckle up, manage your risk as always, and I'll see you guys back at it first thing tomorrow morning, live streaming, 7 a.m. Eastern. So if you're not already doing a 2-week trial, check it out. I think you'll really enjoy it, and I'll see you in the morning.